You are not the problem when you set a healthy boundary in your family. They want you to think you're the problem, though they
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. You already know the vibe. We talk real life, real relationships, and real situations. And today's conversation, who it might ruffle some feathers, but it needs to be had. We're talking about setting boundaries within your family. So I've stitched together some videos that we're all going to watch together, and I'll have my review on the other side. So please make sure you watch till the end. If you're new here, you're most welcome. If you're a frequent visitor, thank you so much for the support. Let's get into the video.
You are not the problem when you set a healthy boundary in your family. They want you to think you're the problem, though they need to desperately pin the blame on you because they can't admit to what's going on. They can't take accountability. They need to protect the dysfunctional system at all costs. But you're not the asshole, my friend. You're not actually making things worse when you're like, I'm not going to ignore this toxic bullshit anymore. I'm not going to stay silent and be complicit. I'm not going to be a part of this unhealthy system. The problem is, if they acknowledged how fucked up everything was, they'd have some very uncomfortable truths to confront. They'd have to do some major emotional growth, and that scares the shit out of them. They might not even be conscious of how desperate they are to protect the system. So the easiest and most avoidant thing they can do is make you into the villain, to make you feel like an asshole for speaking up and pointing out the truth and setting a boundary. They're choosing to protect the person in the family that's actually causing the problem, and that they're too scared to confront or too dependent on themselves. You're being brave. They're being scared. You might feel alone, but I see you and I'm very impressed.
As somebody who has the toxic family, let me tell you some things I do with my child that helps me set those boundaries. First things first, if you don't ask for my kid, you're not going to see them. If you don't acknowledge them, yet you acknowledge every other person in the family, you're just not going to see my children or child or whatever the case may be. You might not even know when the second or the third one is born. You're just never going to see them. You need to acknowledge them, and you need to acknowledge the fact that they exist. There's nothing wrong with my kid just because we have a toxic family. Because 9 times out of 10, my child doesn't know you, they're not obligated to give you any type of respect. They're just not. I'm not going to force my child to be in your face, and I'm not going to force you to be in my child's face. They just simply don't need to respect you. There's no other way for me to explain that. I'm always telling my kid the truth. I'm telling my kid exactly what happened, how it happened, and why I feel this way. I'm not covering up shit. They will know exactly what happened to bring me to where I am today. Simple as that. They're not obligated to call you aunt, uncle, nothing that is of power. They will call you by their name. If I call you by your name, they're calling you by your name. And the only reason why I would tell them to call you different is because you deserve that. And if I'm making this message that I'm making now, is because you don't deserve that. You're not gonna just pop up in my child's life whenever you choose to. It's just not gonna work that way. You either give 100% or you don't give anything at all. And I won't accept nothing less. The moment I see that my child is given any type of biased love, in a sense that you show one cousin more love than you show my child, or you make my child feel less than anyone else, you will never see them again. And it's as simple as that. Because they don't have to go through what I went through. And understand that my child is mine. So I get to call the shots. And I get to protect her from all of.
It's so unfair for you to hold on to somebody's emotions and make yourself unhappy in the meantime. You can't do that to yourself.
So are we saying that your reaction to my boundary is your problem?
Yes, 100%.
I don't think they want to hear that.
Quite frankly, it's the truth. No, seriously, I've had to learn that. I said, like, I love my mum to death.
Yeah.
And I used to drop everything for my mum. And there comes a point where, like, you start, like, there was a lot of guilt of not doing something for my mum or doing something for myself and making sure my mum was good. But I think ultimately, my mum's lived her life. I'm now living mine. And in order for me to have the best quality of life for myself, for my daughter, and for the family I'm building with my partner, it's going to require those boundaries. Yeah. Like neither here or there. Like, if I know I want that over there and that's the type of life I want, there are things that are not going to align with the journey of me going there. So I'm going to have to say no. And ultimately, I can't hold on to how you're going to feel about it, because ultimately you're not extending me the same grace by understanding how I'm going to feel if I do that for you and I take away something from myself or what I want to do.
All right. So before we get started, please don't forget to smash the subscribe button and please click the notification bell so that whenever I have a new video coming up, you're the first one to know. So, going back to today's topic, which is setting boundaries, it means your parents, your siblings, your cousins, your aunts, uncles, everyone. No one is safe in today's topic. And yes, even your children, if you're a parent. Because here's the thing, just because someone is family doesn't mean they get unlimited access to you, your time, your peace, or your personal decisions. So, today we're going to break down 6 major points around this topic and also touch on something that a lot of us deal with but don't always recognize, which is emotional manipulation and how it can show up in family dynamics. So, let's get into it. Let's start with the basics. What even are boundaries? So, boundaries are the lines we draw to protect our mental, emotional, and physical well being. They are not walls to keep people out, they are fences that let the right energy in and keep the draining energy out. Now, in family dynamics, most people don't see these lines, especially in cultures or households where family is supposed to mean access to all areas. So, let me give you an example. Let me paint a picture for you here. If your mother calls you every single day expecting full updates on your life and gets upset when you don't answer, that's a sign that there's no boundary. And it doesn't mean you don't love her, it just means your time, energy, and focus are being put in ways that may not be healthy. So, boundaries sound like I'm not available for calls every day, but we can talk on Sundays. Or I love you, but I don't want to discuss that topic anymore. Or also something like I need space after work to decompress. And those statements are not disrespectful, they're actually acts of love for yourself and the relationship. Now, here's the thing, most families don't intentionally disrespect boundaries. A lot of them just don't understand them, especially if they were raised in environments where everyone was all up in each other's business all the time. They confuse closeness with control, they confuse love with access. And if you've always said yes or always made yourself available, then one day you start to change that. They might think you have turned on them, right? But in reality, you're just learning how to protect your energy. This does not mean cutting people off or being rude. It means realizing that just because someone raised you, it doesn't mean they get to run you. Another example I would like to give you is, let's say your dad shows up to your house unannounced and says, I don't need to call. This is family. A healthy boundary sounds like, Dad, I love seeing you, but I really need you to call before coming over. I'm creating more structure in my space. That's not rejection, it's growth. Now, moving on, let's talk about something that's a little more subtle but very real, and that's emotional manipulation. Now, emotional manipulation is when someone uses guilt, fear, shame, or obligation to get you to do what they want, even if it goes against your needs. And it shows up in families all the time. So, after everything, they'll say things like, after everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me. Or, so now you're too good for us. Or, if you really cared about this family, you'd do what I asked. Does that sound familiar? That's manipulation masked as love. It's not about connection, it's about control through guilt. So here's one example. Your sister asks for money again, even though you've said no multiple times. She says, "You know, mom would have helped me if she were still alive. Now you're spiraling in guilt and grief. That's not fair to you. That's not accountability, it's manipulation." Setting boundaries in these moments means holding your ground, gently but firmly. You can say, "I understand you're going through something, but I'm not in a position to help this time. And that doesn't make me a bad sibling. You're allowed to disappoint someone and still be a good person." Now, we have to talk about respecting your own capacity. This point is about knowing your limits and not overextending yourself, because burnout is real, especially in family relationships where you're expected to be everything to everybody. You're not the family therapist. You're not the emotional dumping ground. You're not the bank, the babysitter, or the 24/7 fixer. You're a human being with needs, limitations, and a life of your own. And if you keep giving beyond your capacity, you start to build quiet resentment. That's how family wounds form, not from the lack of love, but from emotional exhaustion. So, an example I can give you is, if your family always expects you to host holiday events and it's really draining you, it's okay to say, "I'm not able to host this year, but I would love to contribute in a smaller way." You're not selfish for protecting your peace, you're being responsible for your emotional health. Now, the other point I would like to talk about is different boundaries for different family members. Now, not every family member gets the same level of access, and that's okay. Boundaries don't have to be uniform. You might be closer to your sister than your uncle. You might trust one cousin deeply and barely know another, and that's normal. You think of your energy like Try to think of your energy like a phone battery, right? Everyone can't be on 100% all the time. So an example is, your mom might get a weekly check-in call, while your cousin you barely talk to, maybe just a birthday text. And that toxic aunt who always starts drama, maybe not contact at all. And that's valid. Creating levels of access allows you to still show love without self-sacrifice. Now, let me tell you, once you start setting boundaries, some families will not like it. Some family members, rather, are going to resent you. They might call you distant, selfish, and grateful. They'll say you've changed. And guess what? That's the point. You're changing the dynamic to something healthier. You're shifting from obligation to intentional connection. So, an example I can give you is, if a family member keeps calling you names or guilt tripping you over saying no, that's a red flag, and that's not a reason to fold. You don't need to argue or defend yourself every time. Sometimes the most powerful response is, "I've already communicated my boundary and I'm not going to keep explaining it." It's hard, especially when love and guilt are tangled together. But setting boundaries is how you build healthier relationships in the long run. So here's the bottom line: setting boundaries within your family is an act of love. Love for yourself and love for the relationship you want to build. It's not about cutting people off, it's about showing up in relationships in a way that's sustainable, honest, and rooted in mutual respect. Not guilt, not obligation, and definitely not manipulation. So ask yourself, where am I overextending? Where do I need to draw a clearer line? Where have I confused loyalty with self abandonment? Boundaries aren't a betrayal, They're a blueprint for healthier love. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If this video helped you see things differently, go ahead and like it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. You know we keep it real around here. So until next time, take care of your energy, protect your peace, and please make your own boundaries. Goodbye.